Alright, so here is my 30-day review of the HTC Vive. This isn't along the lines of the typical professional review, right? I'm not a professional. This is just me having a conversation with you about my experience with the Vive. Whenever I started this review, I was thinking I could probably summarize my entire Vive experience in 15 to 20 minutes. That should be enough to capture it. That didn't happen. Nope, not at all. So this is a long video. I apologize for that. I'm not going to try trimming it down any more than what I already did, just because, I don't know, I think some of that would be valuable to some people. So instead, I'm going to give you guys some links to the initial setup section, probably over here, a link to the hardware section over here, a link to the general thoughts on room scale over here, and then some content details over here. So feel free to go to one of those links and watch those in detail. I will say before you get started that this all is a review of my experience over the past 30 days with the HTC Vive Pre. Okay, so some things will be different, most specifically, and actually nearly exclusively, in the hardware department, okay? As far as the gameplay and everything else, that should probably be pretty much what you're going to experience. So take the hardware section with, you know, a little bit of skepticism, since your hardware will probably be a little bit different. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Have at it. So here are my thoughts on the initial setup and Steam VR. They've made things pretty easy. All right, as soon as you get things out of the box, the instructions are very clear. Take the time to read them ahead of time, right? Get familiar with just the general setup. It's really a painless process once you actually understand what the components are, right? You have the lighthouses, you have the headset, you got the stuff to plug into your computer, and you got to download Steam VR. I mean, that's really it. Make sure you update your drivers, but I mean, apart from that, most of the stuff takes care of itself. Get your lighthouses positioned right ahead of time, plug them in, understand the difference between A, B, and C as far as those lighthouses. But apart from that, most of the complexity is already taken care of for you, so you don't really have too much to worry about on that. So they did a great job on making sure that things are very, very easy to get going with on day one. The only issues that I had are likely issues that you won't have to deal with, and those are specifically dealing with the direct mode versus indirect mode. So kudos to them, right? They really did a good job of making sure that the setup is intuitive, the instructions are clear, everything is fairly well documented as well as far as the basic setup. That said, going into the troubleshooting, there's maybe some that can be, well, desired there. The overlay that comes up, the SteamVR overlay, which I'll show. Oh yeah, that is really nice. It is really good. It is very user friendly. Everything is very clear if something isn't working. And whenever the troubleshooting steps work, they work great. They work awesome. But whenever they don't work, it's really, really bad, right? Whenever it says, hey, you have an error, it's not connecting, it's not always clear what the problem is. So get familiar with the online forums, get familiar with Googling issues, right? I mean, most other people are going to have had this issue. And if you can't find it, drop me a message below or PM me. I'm glad to help out with that. But as far as this review is concerned, they've done a good job. There are just some edge cases that will cause some trouble. Maybe not with your first setup, maybe not within your first month. And as time goes on, I'm sure that will get better. But as this is a honest review, I did have some difficulty with some of those instructions, with some of the error pop-ups that they came with. So let's talk about the hardware. We're going to first talk about the controllers, okay? These things are amazing. I really do love them. From the shape of them to the button placement, there are so many things that I just absolutely love about this. Whenever you're actually in the VR itself, you don't feel like this weird clunky thing at the front, right? It looks really awkward at first glance. I mean, it kind of looks like a spaceship. I like it. But anyway, once you're in the headset, you don't feel that, right? You feel a fairly well-balanced device, right? And as far as what it is, that's up to the developers. Once they've changed the model, you don't know what you're holding anymore. You're holding a gun, or you're holding a weird flower-tipped grabby thingy in fantastic contraption, right? I mean, it's really up to them. It's great. I've heard a lot of people talk about how it's a little bit uncomfortable for them, or it doesn't feel quite like a gun. Well, no, because it's not a gun, right? I mean, this is a gun, right? This is a Beretta 92 FS. This is the exact same gun that they're using in Brookhaven Experiment, which, by the way, for you people, this is empty, right? I wouldn't be out here just, waving this thing around, and still, safety first, right? Don't point this at anything. But anyway, for everybody else, this is a gun. They have similarities, right? They are fairly even as far as like, where you're going to be gripping things to where the actual trigger is. But I mean, if I were to stick my hand in there, maybe I guess that would probably be as close as it is. But apart from that, that's where the similarities die, right? This is a gun. This is not. Don't hold this the way that you would a gun. So apart from that, the only thing I've heard any issues about is maybe some people pressing buttons inappropriately, which the primary issue that got the most complaints, well, two things actually. One was the menu button, this one right down here, of being pressed inappropriately. That seems to have been, at least in my case, that seems to have been resolved by a SteamVR update a few weeks back, where there was a bug where this thing was automatically popping up 60 seconds after every new game launch, which I thought that I was just pressing it over and over again. I didn't account for the fact that it was always 1 minute after I started a game. But apart from that, the only other issue is occasionally there seems to be some tracking oddities. And I've really only identified this with Windlands. Every other game that I've used so far, the tracking works perfectly. So I'm not sure if that is an implementation issue or if there's actually an issue in the trackpad. It's too early to tell if there's going to be any issues. I have heard other people talk about this, so it's worth calling out. Apart from that, let's talk about tracking. So the tracking from the headset to the controllers is it's great. There are a few times where whenever I'm first starting up a game, these things, like I'll be sitting here with the controllers in hand, right? And it'll look like this hand just sort of drifts off to the right or to the left or something else. There seems to be a learning process whenever you first turn on controllers and the Lighthouse is sort of getting to know it and I guess to trust that it is accurate. And until that happens, there can be some weird drifting. So if I just hold my controllers up and just sort of move them around slowly for a little bit, after 5-6 seconds, the tracking is spot on. I don't have any issues after that. A glitch every now and again is all I've seen, and it hasn't been anything major. But yeah, just let them get to know each other, right? Let them ease into their relationship, and that seems to be the way to get things going smoothly whenever you first start up a game. The headset, I don't seem to have that issue with the headset as far as the weird drifting. That may be because it takes me a few seconds to put it over my head, and maybe that's all the time it takes. And then I usually pick up these controllers afterwards, so maybe that's why I don't notice it there. But yeah, the tracking is spot on. As far as positioning of that hardware, I have one directly above the camera where you're sitting, and one directly up there, which I guess you can't see that. Right up there. So there's one. The other one is directly above here. That positioning works great. They're both angled down a little bit, basically pointing more or less at the center of my room. And that's all the movement. I haven't had to move them since I put them up. I'm able to have a completely seated experience right here with, in Elite Dangerous. I'm able to do that 100% fine with that one being almost directly above me because of its really, really good field of view. That is not an issue at all. So yeah, no issues whatsoever on tracking or the Lighthouse placement. Everything just works great. As far as mounting it itself, pretty painless process. If you've ever, screwed something into your walls before, nothing really new there. You just mount the hardware and then you screw in the Lighthouse, you plug it in and you turn it on. Not really anything else to say about that. And as far as the headset itself, so let's talk, and again, this is the pre, okay? I need to reiterate this more than anything else on the headset because I think the issues that I'll talk about here will likely have been fixed with the the consumer version. So let's talk about the strap first. And this is the one area that I think you can probably disregard because it is different for the new headset. I'm not sure, though, if they've changed specifically the Velcro. So adjusting it to your head, pretty simple process. The wires above it, so whenever you put this on your head, you actually have to lift this up and then pull it back. These wires don't make that incredibly easy, right? Because you have to lift the wires up and then get under here, and then you have to pull it back, and that is somewhat cumbersome. You sort of learn, especially, and well, okay, so let me start this off. If you're the only one playing with it, if you're not going to be sharing it with a bunch of family, friends, kids, whatever, just skip this, okay? This is not for you. If you do, then this might be important because the Velcro itself, very high quality Velcro, but even still, I don't know how many hundreds of times I've taken this off and put it back on now. I don't see any real major wear and tear. On the side, I do see some signs that maybe in another 6 months or so, I might, need to replace some of this Velcro. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out yet, but it does seem to be holding up fairly well. As far as adjusting it for those other people, it's pretty painless. you actually end up learning sort of where, well, at least in my case for my children, I know that my daughter needs it right back here with about 1.5 inches of overhang, even past, you know, the Velcro padding part here. My son needs it a little bit farther up because he has a larger head. So those are just sort of things that you sort of learn. So it's an adjustment phase. You'll get used to it. But yeah, that's the only real issue that I have with this is this one area right here. Adjusting these straps on the side, it's very painless. Oh, I guess I will say that the way that these hold out, excuse me, the way that these are positioned here, my ear comes up in it like pretty much is right about here, which means the underside of my ear is kind of pressing up against that. And it doesn't feel too great, right? I mean, it's not sharp by any stretch of the imagination, but it does rub against it. So I will say that that is not ideal. I wish that there was something they could do there to get it up and over the ear, but not bad. Last thing, I guess, is whenever you actually put this thing on, right? You put it on your eyes, and then you pull this thing back over your head. You'll notice already that this is bunched up right there. Right? There's no like rolling joint where this thing is connected, so you actually have to pull it a decent amount in order to get this thing to stretch out. Just so to better reiterate what I mean, like if you put it on, it's right there. You have to pull the slack out of it. That's not easy whenever there's pressure from the top and from your head. So it's good to try to get that laid out first, but you won't always do that, and especially if you're trying to put it on and put it off, or put it on and take it off quickly. Yeah, that's going to bunch up. And there's no real good grip on the back side of this. Yeah, and especially if you have any hair, like my hair's growing out since I first got it. I'm probably going to shave my head, really, just to help with this. Okay, maybe not. But pulling the back side of this, sometimes you can get your hair caught in there. It seems like they're almost, like if it had a handle right here, I think that would really help out quite a bit. I may even actually think about like just adding that on here. It wouldn't be very difficult to add just some sort of band on the back side of this where I could really get a good grip and pull the slack out of this thing. What else? The camera is good for what it is, right? I mean, I haven't actually used the full Tron mode system yet, but as far as, the wall boundaries and then the inlaid camera that you can have on your controller, it does exactly what you need it to do. I've used it plenty of times where I need to grab one of the other controllers that's not tracking yet, or, get a glass of water. You can hold that up and see what you're going to be grabbing. So really useful there. Whenever it was first announced as the breakthrough item, I figured, wow, really? You just made us wait a long time for that? Come on, jerks. Okay, no, I'm not going to say that was enough yet. But it is a really good feature. It's not quite enough for the hype that they put into it, I will say, but it is incredibly valuable. There are plenty of things that I just wouldn't attempt doing without completely taking my headset off. If you have headphones and the headset, that's not an easy thing to do. So having a quick way to get at a controller and see what's in front of you, great. That is incredibly useful. But don't expect to be taking any glamour shots with this thing because the resolution of the camera is not fantastic. And let's talk about lenses. So the lenses on this are good. The resolution, it is, how do I put this? It is, if it's your first time, the resolution is surprisingly low. Okay, just gonna throw that out there. What you see on the videos on on YouTube for anybody that's playing it, you're not seeing the view as you will perceive it once you have it on. Okay, just bear that in mind. Like it will be less than what you expect. That is not to say that it is bad. It is to say that it is different than what I expected. It's not the high quality that you're used to playing a game on your computer. However, after just a few minutes of playing on the Vive, it's really bizarre. Like whenever I first got into the Vive for the first time, I was like, "Whoa, this is horrible. What am I?" I was expecting something better. And then as that night went on, I thought that the graphics were somehow getting better and better. That wasn't it. My mind stopped caring. That's the only way I know how to put it. So the resolution, it will be shocking at first. Just you will ignore it, and it will be completely fine within a short amount of time. That's not to say that you won't ever have times where you're like, dang, I wish I had a little bit higher resolution. Specifically with shooting games, if you're trying to shoot something out 20, 30, 40 yards, you only have a few pixels to deal with at that range. And so, it gets to be somewhat annoying. This is first generation, totally okay with the current quality of it though. And as far as the lenses themselves, there's been a few questions and comments and things that I've read about lenses. One of them is obviously, and I guess this is more lenses and screen, like pretty much everything I'm talking about right now. I know the lenses is just the focal point, right? But the screen door effect. For the first few weeks that I had this, I had no idea what people were talking about as far as screen door effect, because it wasn't obvious to me, because I was too busy playing the games to stop and like basically just go cross-eyed and try to focus right up here. If you try to look for those pixels, you can see them. You can see a screen door effect, but while you're playing a game, it is so minimal that it's not even a thing. As far as glare, I have noticed from time to time in scenes where there's high contrast that you can get some like sort of like a lens flare type situation. It's not bad. It doesn't mess up your game, but it is there. So I guess sort of it does take you a little bit out of, you know, the whole immersion thing. But it's not something that I would really dock anything from. Should they fix it in future versions? Sure, but it's not bad enough for me to warn people about. I guess I'm only including it here just as complete of a review as I can do. Dirtiness. So whenever I am on stream, I often like pull the headset up and talk to you. Whenever I do that, my hair and my forehead and everything, it apparently touches the lenses, and it does get dirty. So I do absolutely recommend having a set of microfiber cloths. In fact, I just ordered a huge pack of them. Keep them around. You do want to clean your lens with a microfiber cloth only. You want to keep these lenses as good of condition as you can. So a good microfiber cloth, a good set of microfiber cloths is required. And if you don't clean it, you will notice smudging. You will notice more lens flaring and more oddities in your visual view. So every now and again, just look in there, clean it off. Dust will get in there. Just be careful with your lenses. I haven't noticed any scratches on them whatsoever yet. I have been careful with them, but you know, maybe not obsessively so. So you know, after a month, this hardware is in just as good condition as the day that it came. Cables. The cables are long. And as I say that, I just rolled over it. So that was actually part of it. People are worried about this thing becoming frayed and, you know, damaged from use. I'm looking where I just rolled over it with my not so inconsiderable amount of weight plus the chair's weight, and I don't see a mark on it. There's nothing. Here, let me just go through while I'm on here real quick. Let me see if there's any part of this, and I've stepped on this. It's been twisted. I'm looking for any signs of wear, tear, anything. Nothing. And that's the farthest that it would have gone. Nope. Yeah, everything. The cords are exactly in the same, or just as good of condition as the day that I got them. So that's another fantastic thing. Like it's, be careful with them, right? You don't want to lose them. But they are, I expect they'll be replaceable. They are just HDMI, USB, and then a power cord. All of those things, I'm sure you'd be able to replace through Valve. And if it was just your HDMI cable that got damaged, there's nothing keeping you from stripping that one element out of it and replacing that one. So again, awesome job. That is, the cord itself is great. I mean, it's a good solid cord. It's wrapped in good solid plastic. So far, I have had no issues with it. In terms of the cable and how you deal with it while in a game, you learn to have sort of a sixth sense of where that cable is. You know where it is in the game for the most part, and if you don't, the worst that I've had happen so far is in a couple cases somebody's actually kicked it just hard enough to pull out the cables from that breakaway box. No harm, no issues whatsoever, except for the part that you lose your game, because you probably just got hit by a laser beam if that happened, because you're moving around pretty quick, and the only games that's a risk are like Space Pirate Trainer, Hover Junkers, something like that. But yeah, no issues on it whatsoever. Everything came out, then it went back in. I think one time I had to restart Steam VR in order to get the game up and running again, but you know, it's not a huge issue. Is it as great as wireless? Obviously not, right? Once we have wireless, things are going to get so much cooler to begin with. The range. Anyway, I'll never mind. I'm just going to stop talking about that because I'll just go on this big rant of how awesome the feature will be. But in terms of the problem that the cable has in a game, it's not significant. It's not insignificant, right? It is there. It is something that you have to deal with, but it's not something that stops you from having fun. The new players of the game, they often like to turn in circles a lot, which after maybe 10 minutes of them twisting, you might have to tell them to take off the headset, untangle it, and then just go back to your game. So all of them are problems, all of them are inconvenient, but that's the worst word I would use to describe them, right? It's not a game stopper. It's not gonna wreck your experience or your immersion, really. Other cables. The optional USB and audio cable. So there are a few different options that you have for a headset, for earphones. I've tried every option that you can really do at the moment. So I have a pair of, I don't remember with the model number, so don't ask me. It was like a $120 pair of these Bose. And right, they stay in your ear. Whenever I'm walking, jogging, I mean anything, they stay in my ear just fine. However, these are horrible for virtual reality because in order to get these out of the way, so there's a cable that you basically have to plug in like behind your head right about here, right? It's on the back of this thing. It goes through, so you'd want to plug this into this audio jack here, right? So that's hanging from behind your head. You can either have that draping over your neck and then plugging into your ear as normal, but I found that to be annoying. So I tried for a while to have it behind my ears or behind my neck and plugged in that way. And I found that the extra strain that pulls on it causes it to come out of my ears. So I tried wrapping it around my ear and then going in, and that made it stable. But then this part, like the actual separation of these two cables, was not wide enough. So it was really tight on the back of my head, and the cable from the back of the headset, it would cause some strain on that, and they would eventually come out of my ears. And you need good surround sound earphones for virtual reality, especially for shooter games, because that's what tells you half the time where shots are coming from, right? So yeah, if you had a set of earbuds that was potentially like longer, as far as the separation between the two earbuds here, then they'd probably work. So try these out first if you have them. I don't necessarily recommend breaking down and spending a whole bunch of money unless you already find out that these just aren't good enough for you. Another option that I had, and this is the headset that I've been using for the past few years, this is a Logitech G35. This is my standard go-to gaming headset. I really like this one. It has a really long, cord, and so I tried this one. There's a problem here. It's that the headset itself, like the cord itself, it's long, but it's not long enough. It's not as long as the actual cable to go to the computer. So I don't have the option of just sort of tying this in with my other cables. So that means that I need to plug it in to the USB port on the back of the headset. The problem with that is that this is a really long cable. And so I have two options. I can either bind this cord up tight to where you have a fairly lengthy amount of cord and then somehow strap it to the back of the headset, and that's somewhat okay. The problem with that, and I'll demonstrate both these things in here in just a moment, is that whenever you go to take the headset off, you'd have to have both of these in your hand at the same time after shutting down controllers. It's kind of cumbersome, and if you just let this be long, then you have this draping around your ankles. So here, let me show you what I mean between those two setups real quick. All right, so you'll see that this first approach, I mean, it is doable. However, I'm so terrified that at some point I would trip over that and my entire headset would come off. I mean, I don't know. There's so many risks of having that huge dangling cable behind your back. The second approach is just cumbersome. You have to, if you have a table, I guess, nearby that you could set them both off of, if you're not trying to actually put it on from the floor or take it off and put it on the floor, then maybe that would work. So if you had a table, then that could probably solve this issue for you. But for me, I'm typically taking this off in the middle of my room, and so it's really just cumbersome. So my solution to that has been these. This is a very good wireless set from what I've seen so far. There's no audio loss, at least from what I can tell. I mean, I don't consider myself an audiophile, but I do enjoy high quality music. I do enjoy high quality sounds, and these are working great so far. I'm not selling these things, so I mean, if you want to check them out, there it's in the about section on my YouTube channel. But yeah, just find a good wireless set if you have the same problems that I had with either the USB or the audio jack cable. So yeah, wireless seems to solve a lot of those issues. It's very easy for me to just take these off, put them on the ground, take the headset off, put it on the ground, and everything seems to work just fine. Room scale: standing, sitting, laying down, what have you. So here is where I am a month after this. And people have been asking, people have been suggesting, talking, wondering, all sorts of, different words there about, is room scale a gimmick? Are the motion controls a gimmick? Is the stuff just going to be, oh, that's cool, and then a month later you're going to be, just tired of it? No. let me put this to rest as soundly as I can. No. Absolutely not. I am still finding myself spending more time in games like Space Pirate Trainer, right? Which is one of the more simple games that I have. You're just standing in a small, in your room, and you're able to dodge left and right, and you're able to shoot at these robots that are flying around you. You have to dodge, you have to move out of their way, otherwise the game's over. You have to use that room scale. And that is one of the games that I have found to be the most enjoyable, that I can just keep on playing over and over again and not get tired of it. I bought Elite Dangerous. I have played it. It is fun. I even bought, a not inexpensive control stick for it, and that's a lot of fun too. But I keep going back to Space Pirate Trainer. I keep going back to those games that keep having me moving around. There's something about it, and yeah, there's no way to say it. Like, it's not discounting the other games, right? This is not saying that this is going to replace all games. This is something that you could never do before. This is an entirely new set of games that will monopolize a portion of your gaming time, because it is that much fun. For me, I haven't played a 2D game. I haven't played a game on my monitor since I got the Vive. That's not true. I loaded up Star Citizen last week, and I toyed around with that a little bit just to see what's new in there. But apart from that, I have not played a single 2D game except for League of Legends with my wife, because that's the only game that I can get her to play with me. And yeah, it's not because it's not because I'm creating these videos, right? For every hour that I spend streaming, there's another hour or two that I'm playing just for myself, or playing it with my kids, letting them play it. VR is intense. It is amazing, especially once you get it into room scale. I've tried a couple different sitting experiences now, and this isn't a fair comparison, okay? I'm just saying this is what I have at my disposal, and the sitting games that I have are not as much fun long term. I'll probably play Elite Dangerous for several more hours. Don't get me wrong. Like that, I think the combat in that, just being able to look around at your ship, that is incredibly immersive. Especially once you have a good flight stick and throttle and all that. That it absolutely changes everything whenever you're not using your mouse and keyboard. But room scale has its own place. It is completely different than anything you've ever played before. And it is not a gimmick. It is not something that you're going to pick up. It's not a Kinect, okay? Just stop. If you've ever thought of it like the Kinect, it's not. That's all I can tell you. It is nothing like the Kinect. I have a Kinect. It's sitting over there. It hasn't been used in months. It hasn't been used since probably like 2 days after I bought the Xbox One for my kids. And the Kinect on my 360 prior to that, it probably hadn't been used in a year. I have used this thing, and most specifically these things, every day for the past 30 days, or however long it's been. What is that, leap year? Anyway, whatever, for the last month. And I will probably keep on playing it for the next month. It is... Anyway, I'll keep going on that for way too long. Just, yeah, room scale, it is a thing. Stop trying to... stop worrying about it being a gimmick. Stop worrying about it, completely taking over other games. It's not necessarily better than any other game that you're currently playing. It's not better than a 2D game, but it is an entirely different experience, and it is more intense than anything that you've currently played if you haven't tried it yet. As far as standing experiences, I've had plenty of fun with those as well. I would say I would call budget cuts more along the lines of a standing experience. I'm not sure how they categorize themselves on that one, but on that one, you only need to be able to stand, and then you throw things, you teleport around, and that one is so much fun. But the motion controls is really, I think, what sells that for me. But standing experiences are just going to be as good as room scale. They will absolutely have their own purposes, and the same thing with seated games. Yeah, as far as reviewing everything, all of the stuff together, I can't put one over the other as far as the long term, which one is better, because it's not fair. They will have their own games, and they will have their own areas that they shine and areas that they are completely horrible in. First person shooters, the Vive will never take that marketplace, right? It's just until they solve the locomotion issue, it's not gonna take that over. So first person shooters, you're still, in my opinion, you're still probably gonna be on a flat screen. Like, I don't see that making a wide migration over to VR anytime soon. Hover junkers is one of the few that I say will do that, unless every single first person shooter put you on a hoverboard. I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. I'm excited to find out. But from my experience, first person shooters probably belong on a flat screen for the very near future. So that leads us into nausea. Nausea is a problem. There are two types of nausea that I've sort of run into. One of them is just a poorly optimized game, which is a game that is running at less than 90 frames per second. That is bad. That is so bad. There's only been a couple cases now where I've actually had that be an issue, and I've felt horrible for a good hour or two after that. Okay, so if you wait until you already start feeling nauseous whenever you're in a low FPS games, you're done. You're in a bad shape for a long time. If you put on this headset and it is not like butter smooth, if your head movement is not right, take it off. Don't wait till you start getting sick. Take it off immediately and save yourself the trouble. You're not going to be able to get through this. At least I don't recommend this to anybody. I don't know anybody that would be able to get through this. It is bad. It is so very bad. Specifically low frames per second. The movement stuff, people might be able to stomach that better than I can, but I don't expect that anybody's going to be able to get through the low frames per second in a good state. It is the worst, like, stomach feeling that I think I've ever had, apart from being actually physically ill. So the other type of nausea is just the motion, right? Whenever you're moving around using the thumbstick to move around. That will cause its own sort of breed of nausea, but I found that one is much easier to deal with, and it doesn't sort of just creep up on you and then boom, you're done. It sort of slowly builds, and if you ignore it for a while, you're typically okay. But just know when your limits are, and take breaks, let yourself breathe every now and again. That kind of nausea is not so terrible, but it's still not great. I've had a few cases now. One game in particular that I've played that was a seated experience with a controller. And this is, I think I've only had one game where I've actually been seated and moving around that wasn't also low frames per second. But the one that I did that was like that, and I'm not actually technically allowed to name it just yet, but that one was wretched. I was watching something from a camera that just sort of rotated around this scene, and it was awful. By the time that I was, by maybe 5-10 minutes in that, it was awful. So just know your limits. That's all I got to say. I mean, those games will work for some people, from what I understand. People have been playing these kind of games in the DK2 for several years now, and they've managed to get through it. But for me, from my personal ability to cope with those things, it's just right out. I can't do them. Give me a cockpit, and then I'm just fine. Elite Dangerous, right? Your motion is all based off of the same sort of setup. The place is moving you, but the cockpit solves that issue. And in Woodlands too, they help with having that wire frame around it, and that's enough to center you, to give you an idea of, you're not actually moving. It's, your area around you that's moving, and that's why you don't feel it. So again, know your limits. I'm not saying don't try the games, just figure yourself out. That's really all I got to say on that one. Content fatigue, boredom. Am I still enjoying my time? The answer to that is yes. I am absolutely still enjoying it. Out of all the games that I have, I think I only have 2 of them that are at least close to the full final version. Everything else I have is just a demo. So after a month, I'd like more stuff, right? I'd like to play a full game. I'd like to do something other than a demo. So for me personally, I'm not sure that it's fair to really evaluate content fatigue for the most part, except for the fact that of those games that I do have, it has kept me engaged for a month. Really. It has kept me excited. It has kept me, just thinking about it while I'm at work, waking up in the morning, just can't wait to try this next thing for a month. And these are demos, okay? These are games that only give, 2-3 minutes of possible experience, right, before you have to restart it. But that seems to be enough. I keep going back to the ones that push you farther as far as like a more of a challenge. Space Pirate Trainer is the one that I really keep on going back to, because that one doesn't seem to need a whole lot of extra levels. It's all about getting that final score, becoming better. So I am enjoying improving this. Unlike RPGs have been my thing forever. And I love RPGs. One of the greatest joys that I find in an RPG is the ding, you've leveled up, right? Like, that is so much fun. I love that experience. Like, there's something about that sense of accomplishment. And while that can be can be true for other, like League of Legends or shooters, as far as getting better and better, and that is satisfying, it absolutely is. But I have found that in Space Pirate Trainer, that those moments where I see like 3 things, from one over here, one up there, and one over there, and I go bang, 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 and I get them all dead center. Like, that is, it is an amazing feeling. Okay, it's like leveling up in an RPG. It's like that feeling of accomplishment. Like, man, and what makes it more so is, that's my skill, right? It's not because I twitched a mouse just a certain way, which, again, I'm not discounting those particular achievements, because the people that play those games and do them well, amazing. I was watching Rocket League the other day, like a month and a half ago now, and I see these people doing these crazy things off walls. Those people have amazing skill, and they should be proud of that skill. But there is something about, like, moving your body and doing those things that is something that I've never really identified with. So yeah, for sports people, I'm sure you can identify with this, right? You understand this already. I don't, because I have, well, plenty of excuses. One of them is I have weird bones and my bones don't connect right. So from a fairly young age, I was advised to not do high impact activities, right? I have all sorts of weird things that can happen if I get damaged that way. So pathetic, whatever, judge me however you want, that's fine. But I've never really had that opportunity to really engage with something physical like that and really feel that sense of accomplishment. VR solves that. I cannot imagine how cool it will be for people that are wheelchair bound, that are maybe bedridden, that still have access to their arms, and they're going to be able to do this stuff. They're going to be able to get that sense of accomplishment, and it is going to be so cool. Like, this is going to be so amazing for so many people. So as far as content fatigue, back to that, it just depends on really what you enjoy doing. And for me, Space Pirate Trainer has kept me more than well enough engaged for the past month. That plus the other demos that I have, I absolutely see myself playing a lot of these games. The more player skill driven that it seems to be, the more that I seem to engage in it, and more that I keep on going back to it, even if I'm horrible at it at first. Like, if y'all saw my Brookhaven experiment first run through, I was pathetic, right? It was so bad, but I was able to go back and try it again. And I was able to get so much better at it, and just, going through that demo, that was incredibly satisfying. And I can't wait for those guys to come back with more stuff. And then there's the other games, which is just you flailing around and causing havoc. I'm talking about like Maximum VR, and it's just it's not something that you can do in any other situation. You can't just flail your hands around and destroy the walls around you. But here you can, and I have found myself doing that often because it is fun. It is something that you can't experience anywhere else. Other games, more creative, Sculptor VR, sorry, Tilt Brush. Those games, they allow you to create in ways that you can't currently possibly create in. It changes the way that you think about content. There have been so many games leading up to this particular set of experiences, right? Before I actually got my Vive, I had a set list of games that I could not wait to play in VR. Some of those came out to be true. Hover Junkers, for example, was one that I saw was in development, and I could not wait to play it because it looked awesome, and it is amazing. There are other games more along the lines of Elite Dangerous and other things like that that I thought were going to be the mind-blowing ones, the ones that were really going to just change everything for me. And those, while they're fun, those aren't the ones that change things for me. Those aren't the ones that blow my mind, that really make me think about them day in and day out. It's the silly things. It's the simpler ones. It's Tilt Brush. It's Space Pirate Trainer. It's Maximum VR. It's the things that are so very foreign to your current reality, which, yeah, you could argue that flying through space is foreign to your reality. Yes, absolutely. But you're still in a cockpit, right? You're in a car all the time. Like, I'm not doing a good job of comparing this, but there's just something different about it, of being able to get in there and create, that I think at least taps into the way that my brain works. This will be entirely different for every single person, I'm sure. But as far as me, as far as how I am dealing with the content that I have in content fatigue, I cannot overstate how amazed I am with how much it has excited me and kept me going, and just really made me enjoy technology and just everything around it. So that's all I have to say on content fatigue. And that's it. That pretty much, fairly succinctly, only 40 minutes of nonstop rambling. Not too bad. There's a lot of stuff to go over with the Vive. I probably could have shortened that up a bit. I really could have. I probably should have. Most of you guys probably aren't even watching this right now. If you are, comment below saying that you're here, just so I know that people actually watched this thing. That'd be kind of interesting to find out how many people actually got this far. But anyway, I hope you guys found that at least somewhat informative from time to time. That is, I can't say how much I've enjoyed this past month with the Vive. It is really the single coolest thing that I've ever done with gaming, and maybe even the coolest thing I've ever done, period, in technology, right? It's just nothing else really compares to the depth of the experience that I had, and just these few short demos that I have access to. I am absolutely blown away with how things have changed in such a short amount of time, as far as my understanding of what is a fun game, and my thoughts on where things are going in the future. So I hope you guys share my enthusiasm with this. It is only going to get cooler from here. So anyway, if you have any questions, drop them below. Thanks for watching this. If you did like this video, please like it, and other videos that you enjoy. It really helps me know which ones you want to see more of in the future. And if you want to see more of me, subscribe. I guess. See ya.